it wasn't that long ago where I was riding on my bike in Miami, handing out paper flyers with my little bike helmet in the 90-degree heat. I still keep that approach now.
In this episode, we're exploring the journey of Savanna Stevens, who is not only the founder of a global yoga community, but also a model and a mental health advocate. So keep watching to find out how she did it. I'm here with Savanna Stevens, founder of S3 Yoga, model, mental health advocate. How are you today?
Better than average,
as
I like to say. Super grateful and excited to be here and connect with your community. You've done so many amazing things yourself, and yeah, super honored to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here as well. So can you share with us how your yoga journey began and kind of what inspired you to start S3 Yoga in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I usually like to start my story with found my father dead when I was 16. I almost died shortly thereafter due to complications after a knee surgery. So I emerged from adolescence with this ability to just realize how precious life is. And yoga was very instrumental in my healing journey. Did things like therapy, journaling, and all the tools to go through that process of overcoming that. But yoga physically helped me with my knee, right? But the mental and spiritual benefits were like life-changing and life-saving for me. So that really started my journey, and that being that young, curious 16-year-old, I went to like a yoga ashram, lived there for 6 months, and was always just drawn to yoga. And yeah, so that's kind of how my journey started. I always like to say your journeys don't have to be as dramatic, right, as mine, but I'm really passionate about like turning your pain into purpose, and that's kind of what catapulted my journey.
I love that. It's a beautiful story. What's the meaning behind the name S3 Yoga?
Yeah, so S stands for Stevens, my last name. I like to say you can't do anything without the support system of your squad.
Yeah.
And 3 stands for the 3 things you must focus on to achieve anything in life, and that's your mind, body, and spirit. When I started S3 Yoga, it was shortly after I had quit my 9 to 5. I'm not sure if we're going to get into all that, but yeah, I was working for the NBA, did everything I was supposed to do, right? Went to top 50 university, was really working my dream job for the Miami Heat in Miami, making damn near 6 figures.
Wow.
Life is good. But deep down, I was like crying in my car at lunch every day. And again, that following your intuition is something that's always stuck with me from that young age. And so when I followed my intuition to quit the job, and when I started S3, it was the execs that I was working with at the NBA. It was my family members, my cousin, she plays in the WNBA. Like, I was working with professional athletes, executives. I'm like, what do we all have in common here? Like, I'm like the weird spiritual yogi one. And I realized it was that mind, body, and spirit. Like, in order to excel in anything in life, whether you're an executive, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, it's to focus on your mind, body, and spirit. So that's always been really instrumental in my approach to S3 Yoga and beyond just life in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what goes into actually founding a global wellness community? Like, how do you get people to believe in this mission and kind of join this community?
Yeah, so it's funny, like, it sounds so like amazing and a global wellness. It really started with like me just bootstrapping teaching yoga. Like, I was like, this is something that saved my life, and I want to help other people. That was how I started, and that's kind of how it's grown into what it is now and continues to grow. I was speaking the other day to like a group of high school kids, and one of the questions were like, well, like, what's your 5-year goals? Like, what numbers do you want to hit? And for me, it's never been about the money. My goal is always, I want to touch more people and help more people. And that's been the driving force. And I had the self-awareness when I quit and started teaching yoga that I don't want to be managing like running a yoga studio, like a physical brick and mortar. This was pre-COVID, so I'm glad I listened to myself on that one. So I always knew I wanted to travel. I wanted to help people with yoga. And that's how, with S3 Yoga, where I don't have a physical space, I contract out yoga and wellness programming to athletes, companies, and that nature, which allows me the life that I want, to travel and do all these things. So that self-awareness was really important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of taking a few of your classes, and it's definitely not the typical yoga experience.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about how you differentiate S3 Yoga from other yoga communities or companies, and kind of what makes S3 Yoga special.
Yeah, so for me, it's meeting people where they're at, making it accessible and fun and practical. Being in the environment that I was, growing up in New York City, working with a lot of people of color, athletes already, I found myself being a translator almost. I learned the traditional yoga teachings at the ashram in Bali and all these amazing places. But I was like, all right, how can I get this to my community? And it's simple as playing Drake and Future without the curse words, or, taking the teachings that are in Sanskrit and talking to you like I'm talking to you right now versus this esoteric, unattainable thing. So really just making it practical and then fun. For me, I'm sure we'll get into this with the modeling also, it's been a perfect blend of just loving and accepting my body as it is. And I think that's what yoga allows us to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you talked about making it accessible for all. And I think that's really important because a lot of companies will say that they're accessible for all, right? But they don't really integrate it into their company in a very tangible way. So I'm curious about some of the other strategies or just the other ways that you ensure that your classes are accessible for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, I always try to speak from my experience. Like I'll still go to yoga classes where I'm the only person of color in the class, right? I think about also, it's very woman dominated in a lot of ways when I go to classes. So I really just speak, I think it's because I'm speaking from a real personal experience. People can relate, whether or not we come from different walks of life. I always say in classes, like, I'm talking to you guys, but I'm really talking to myself. So whether that's, people come in to the classes 10 minutes late, fine. Like life's all the time, right? So creating an open space, come in late, come as you are. I got guys in class in jeans the other day. Just really emphasizing the importance of just being yourself and showing up as yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And she's telling the truth, guys, because I was late. I was 10 minutes late the first time, and you were like, whatever. Yes. But yeah, being accessible is very important. And I think even other companies can see that, right? You've been able to build some really great partnerships with some huge brands like Nike and Google and Soho House. So how do you get to a point where these brands are willing to invest in you and kind of trust you to represent them?
A couple things I'd say to that. One, it wasn't that long ago where I was riding on my bike in Miami, handing out paper flyers with my little bike helmet in the 90-degree heat. I still keep that approach now. I was talking with like MBA and stuff. This was like 5+ years in the making, more than that really, 10+ years in the making, and just never losing that mindset of just, I know hustle culture and all that, but like really just hustling. That's what have been doing and continue to do. And then also the important thing for me was putting myself in these spaces, even when I didn't feel ready or comfortable. And I've almost, it's funny, like I feel like there's two sides of me here where it's like, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm not good enough. Yeah. And then there's another voice that will like book that meeting or that phone call that'll help me get to the next point. So I kind of feel like I'm dragging myself along a lot of the times because insecurity, self-doubt, I still get it all the time. So that was really instrumental in building those relationships, putting myself in those spaces. And then going back to, with S3 and like that authenticity and being able to, show up as myself, whether I'm in a meeting, whether I'm teaching a yoga class, whether I'm doing a podcast, showing up fully as myself. Because most of the clients I've gotten have been referrals of people who've never taken my classes before, right? And it's more so off of like, who you are, the reputation, and obviously, gotta live up to the hype to keep, doing what you're doing. But and I take classes all the time, like in terms of the skill of yoga and getting better as an instructor is something that, you're always a student.
Yeah, I love that. I love you highlighting the significance of like hustling, because I think we're trying to find this balance between like hustle culture and knowing when to rest. But it is important to like work hard and to stress the importance of that, and to be really honest about what it takes to, you know, start a business at all.
Yeah.
So you're also a model, right?
Yes.
Signed with Elite Models.
Yes.
So I'm curious if you found any intersections between your career as a yoga instructor and as a model.
Man. It's crazy. You know, where do I begin? I think about like our audience too, right? Of these like mainly women we're speaking to, right? Or not even anyone, but I think about the young, like just in general in culture, like we have to be pretty thin, this, that, and the third. And that's something I always internalize. And like, I was like, oh, I'm not a size 0. I'm not a plus size, right? I'm in this in between. So I never felt like I could do it. I've had almost every single eating disorder you could name. And I'm really open about that in relation to like my mental health journey. So like I've been there, like I was in it, and it wasn't until I did the work. I was going to with the eating disorder. I didn't even think we'd be talking about this, but with the eating disorders, like I went to OA meetings, which is like, you know, AA for alcoholics. They have it for like people with eating disorders. So I just did the work within therapy. Yoga really helped me with that, like loving and accepting myself as I am in this very moment, which is so hard to do even now. So with the yoga, now I'm at a point where I'm using both instances. I'm using my body, right?
In some way.
Yeah. And I remember someone asked me the other day, do I feel pressure to, you know, like be super fit and like toned and all this stuff as a yoga teacher? And I was like, actually, I thought about it. I'm like, that would make sense. Yeah. But for me, yoga allows me to love and accept my body as it is. And I keep saying that over, because these are like mantras I've said in my head for years of just letting my body be as it is and having gratitude for my body as imperfectly perfect as it is. And yoga gives me that space and freedom to do that. And then on the flip side with modeling, you know, I walked into Elite, size 8, gray hairs, you know.
We love it though.
I had gotten to the point where it wasn't like take it or leave it, but it was like, this is me. This is like take it. I didn't say that to them, but you know, that type of energy. And yoga has helped me do that. And that's kind of how I approach whenever I go to a modeling casting or whatever. It's like just showing up as yourself.
Yeah. Along those lines, I think also when you're a multifaceted person, I think you really start to begin to see how two industries and two passions that might seem like completely unrelated actually have a lot in common, right? And kind of have these universal themes that are very similar to each other, could teach you similar lessons, right? And they kind of feed into each other and influence each other because of that. So with that being said, in the modeling industry, clients and agencies are increasingly looking for models who have passions outside of just modeling. So do you feel like your work with S3 Yoga has helped your modeling career in any way?
100%. So any aspiring models out there, I remember I was at randomly at a dinner. This was like 15 years ago, maybe like not 50, a long time ago. And I had met, I don't know if you know this designer, Norma Kamali.
Yes.
And she had said, this was like when I was still in college, like about that little girl in me still wanted to be a model. And she had told me, she was like, and she's, I mean, you know, Norma Kamali. And the one thing I remember her telling me was like, you got to be more than just a pretty face. And and this was when I was like 18 years old. And that always stuck with me. And you know, nowadays it's like I have my website, my Instagram, like that's what brands are looking for. They're looking for people, real people with personalities who are doing dope shit, excuse my French, doing dope things. And that, I'd always like to say, like, whether I'm teaching yoga, whether I'm on set, whether I'm on a podcast, no matter what it is, my mission is to inspire people to be the best version of themselves in mind, body, and spirit. So if I'm modeling, it's that 15-year-old girl, right, who wants to love and be herself and be a model or whatever it is. So I think, and I even think about, you know, my, I had like, the media kits and the one sheets, like people want to see all the things that so I'm selling my brand as myself. I'm not the best model. I'm not the best yoga instructor either, right? But I am the best version of myself in the process. And that's what people are drawn to.
That's very important.
Yeah.
So speaking of other passions, you're also a mental health and wellness advocate.
Yes.
So we've kind of already been touching on this throughout the entire interview, but how do you feel that yoga can improve one's mental health, especially in the context of what you do with your company S3 Yoga?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, yoga isn't a physical practice. It's a physical practice, but it's the mental and spiritual benefits that keeps me showing up. Yoga, the purpose of yoga is, there's a lot of things, but is to be able to sit in meditation, right? You want your body to be like well and able to do that. And it's a very long lineage, it goes back thousands and thousands of years. And that mind, body, spirit connection that's really triggered in the physical practice of breath to movement. In yoga, I inhale, reach your arms up, exhale, bring your mind down. So that being able to connect with your body in that way is really, I don't even know how to describe it. I always say it's like a yoga high, right? Whether it's those are the endorphins or what have you. But I was teaching for the MBA camps last year, and one of the kids asked me, he was like, well, what's the difference between yoga and stretching, right? And the biggest thing for me is that awareness, right? When you're stretching, you could just stretch, do whatever. But with yoga, the emphasis on being present with your breath and your body has really allowed me on and off the yoga mat to be more present and compassionate with myself.
I love that. The difference between yoga and stretching. That's something I've thought about a lot, actually. And I kind of think that same way about like yoga and Pilates. Like I think there's a lot that intersects, right?
Yeah,
but
for sure.
they're all very different. So I like that you pointed out that difference. And yoga can definitely have a huge effect on someone's physical, mental and spiritual, being. But I think everything that we discuss on this show always has to do with women in one way or another, right? This whole concept of femininity is just like so huge right now. I think you can't even like scroll on social media for 2 seconds without seeing something about like feminine energy.
Yes.
And for me, like I've always felt like yoga is a very feminine experience. Not to say that men shouldn't or can't do it.
Men need to tap into their masculine feminine.
100%. But for me, like whenever I'm feeling like disconnected from myself or burnt out or something, I feel like yoga has always helped me reconnect with my body in a way that kind of reawakens my energy, but as a woman specifically.
Yes.
So I'm curious about your thoughts on the intersections of yoga and feminine energy and how it can benefit women specifically.
Oh man, yeah. I think you just really hit the nail on the head there. Being able to just love and accept your body as it is really hard. Like it's taken me years to do that, and yoga has really been instrumental in that. And I like the divine feminine. What have I coined it? Like the goddess pocket, like this goddess energy. And being able to be with yourself is such masculine, feminine, whatever. Just
something
that ability
that everyone should master. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I feel like a lot of people or a lot of like yoga companies or communities have profited off of that. Like I've seen a lot of like goddess energy centered yoga programs. I don't know if you've seen those, but I do like the way that you do it in a way that's accessible for everyone, not just like socioeconomically, I guess, but also like any gender, any age, any background. It's very important.
Yeah, 100%.
So lastly, I just wanted to ask you, what overarching message do you want to just send out to the world with everything that you do as a yoga instructor, as a model, and through your advocacy?
Oh my gosh, I have so many things.
I know.
But I'll keep it as short as possible. First thing is just don't give up on yourself. Whatever it is, whether it's modeling. For me, it was modeling, yoga, even when I was working my 9-to-5 in sports, right? I just didn't give up on myself. Yeah, my goals changed, but I just never gave up on myself at my lowest points, right? I went to the, help groups. I went to therapy. I cry on my yoga mat all the time. Just don't give up on yourself. wherever you are in your career, in your life, just don't give up. And yeah, I think that's just don't give up on yourself. My whole mantra is create a life you don't need a vacation from. So, you know, taking care of your mind, body, and spirit. I don't feel like I need to like go on that plane to Miami that I used to go to all the time, or escape myself, escape, you know, my reality. And so, yeah, just take, and I always, for me, it's been that juxtaposition of going for these ambitious goals, but it also has to be sustainable, right? You also have to take care of yourself. So don't sacrifice. You can do both. And I think my life and career is a testament to that.
A huge testament to that.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that. Savanna, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I learned so much from you today, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Make sure to check out Savanna on social media and keep up with S3 Yoga. If you're in New York, consider taking a class.
Yes.
And as always, make sure to tune in next week for another episode of How She Did It.